What are your thoughts on Costa Rica? I mean, obviously you guys are heavy favorites, but how might they?
Yeah, I mean, they're in our way to the Olympic dream, so they're definitely an opponent that you have to respect. They had a great goal that we just actually saw at the end of the game. The girl hit a long ball, took it off her chest, one touch in. So definitely respect their attacking ability, but we need to bring it. It's a semifinal. It's a game that determines whether they're in the Olympics or not.
They've never scored against you in 7 games, though.
Correct, but just like any other result, Japan never beat us before. That World Cup game. So I think we always throw those statistics out of the bag and take it for what it is. It's a major match that's going to advance us into the Olympics.
What happened to your eye?
Game injury. Got a broken blood vessel. Makes me tougher.
What did Riley say about it?
Well, she just said, your eye's bleeding. Why is your eyes bleeding? And it won't stop.
It seems like you guys are playing really well. Is it sometimes hard to know for sure when the margin is so big?
I think we've been doing it. These last couple camps we've really seen the team rise to a different level. I think our training environment has been better. The confidence has been better. We have a lot of great personalities out there, and I think the effects of the World Cup woke us up a little bit. Meaning the way we were playing before we got to the World Cup, the way we played in the World Cup, and being so close and coming in second and having those emotions. It's the same team besides Sid LaRue, so everybody knows those effects. I think it's just everybody's ready. Everyone's bringing it. They want to make sure we qualify for the Olympics and then still advance and get this team better.
Is that one of the good parts of this compacted schedule, where your 2 biggest tournaments are back to back, that there can actually be some sort of momentum or carryover between the two?
I think so, yeah. Definitely we're carrying that emotion from the World Cup, but just not getting too emotional, not letting that get the best of us, and realizing that we still have to fine-tune some things. We're working on a new system, which always brings the team closer together, because we're working a lot closer together. We're communicating more. I think there's so many great personalities. I think this system fits as well. We still need to work on some stuff, but it's just everyone's excited about it, and looking forward to how great we're playing. I mean, I think even though the opponent wasn't as taxing for us in the first 2 games, still I feel like the speed of play that we were playing and the 1 and 2 touch and some great goals scored, is building confidence with this team.
You said the training environment was different and better. How do you mean?
I think everyone just has stepped it up. It's more competitive. I think everybody realized that emotion coming off the World Cup and being in a big tournament. The young players all the way up to the eldest. I think the young players are bringing more to the table. The communication's better. They're speaking up more, which brings more involvement within team meetings and just more communication on the field, knowing what the younger players need and what the older players need. It's just a constant communication, and especially with the new system. You have to work together, or else it will fail. And right now we're looking more at the offensive side of the system. So we have a lot of numbers flying forward, and that's what we want to see. We still have to fine-tune the defensive part of the system.
There's some question of whether Hope's going to play. What does that do to the defensive part of the system if she's not back there?
Well, it's shocking to me that that she was even had a little tweak. She I had no idea in the game, so she was playing through it and obviously keeping it to herself and getting through the game, and she looked good at practice today, and she can go. It's great, but as a defense, we have a strong keeper, Nicole Barnhart.
Christie Sinclair and even a couple other people this week have brought up the subject of whether or not it's right that everything comes down to one game, whether the format needs to change, or whether it's home and home or round robin or something like that. And obviously you can't control this for tomorrow, but any overall thoughts on that?
Well, I think we're pretty lucky with having a second chance, having a tournament, having a qualifying tournament, unlike Germany, who, wasn't able to qualify due to the World Cup. So I think for us, it's definitely a positive fact that we do have a qualifying tournament and we get to play a few games, and there's a lot of teams that have the advantage of making it a good team.
How much do you need 3 days off before Friday? Playing on turf,
It's good. I mean, it's good for us to get re-energized, have a day off, and the turf. Everyone's got a plan. It's an even playing field, but it does affect the body, so it's nice to have that extra day.
The Mexico coach, Cuellar, mentioned maybe someday there'll be home-and-home series instead of playing everything within a week or 10 days.
Right.
I would
Like
assume
the
as a
men do.
player.
Yeah.
Would you prefer that, so you don't have to play 3 games in 5 days?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the competition would be even better. I think the women's game is rising and getting better and better, and just to be able to play home and away with fresh legs and really see the competition rise, I think it'd be great for the sport.
Pia kind of tweaked the back line a little bit the last game, yet you guys didn't seem to miss a beat. I mean, just talk about that.
We've been doing a lot in training. I wouldn't say the back four is completely settled, so it's also good because there's a lot of competition out there, but we've been working in all different positions. Becky's been in the middle, she's been out wide, Bueller's been, primarily in the middle. She's trained a little bit out wide, not too much. And you have Heather Myths, and the same with Amy, and they're both going right and left, so it's just, it's definitely for whoever Pia thinks will best suit the team we're playing against. Everybody's ready.
Well, that is the hope. We still have quite some time to figure that out. I have rehab scheduled right here after the media session, another rehab session tonight, so we're just going to have to wait and see how it goes.
You didn't look terribly comfortable with the bandage on in training.
I never like tape or bandages, even on my shoulder. I don't like it on my wrist. I don't like athletic tape or bandages, so it is hard to get used to that kind of thing if you're not used to it.
Is that acupuncture you were getting used to?
Yep, did 2 sessions of acupuncture to help promote the healing.
Is that new for you, or have you gone through that before?
I've done it twice before, once on my back. I never felt any pain. Never felt any help, but then I did have it once on my shoulder, and it did relieve some of the pain, so it can't hurt.
It seems like you and Abby are never quite at 100% in these big tournaments. How rare is it that you guys are at 100%?
I mean, as a pro athlete, you're always a little bit banged up. You got some bumps and bruises. A high caliber player like Abby, who gets man marked, double teamed, triple teamed, always on the ground. It is hard to stay healthy, but we're both very professional and we get the job done. We do what we have to do. We spend hours, in rehab. I've been putting in extra sessions. I've been doing extra fitness, extra weight sessions. In an effort to get back to where I was prior to my shoulder surgery. So I think a lot of people aren't aware that I'm pushing my body to the limit right now, because the fact of the matter is in the World Cup I wasn't at my best, and I was so focused on my shoulder that now it's time to get my entire game back to be the best that I want to be.
It seems like you guys are playing really well, but because of the margin of victory, is it sometimes hard to know for sure, or are there things you guys see that you know?
It is hard to know for sure. Some of the first 2 teams we played, they didn't have the speed, the strength, even the organization that some of the higher caliber teams have. So, when Hale beats somebody one-on-one, yes, we're happy for Hale, but you got to keep in mind, 1v1 defensively, maybe they're not as strong. So it's hard to celebrate the way we want to celebrate, yet a goal is a goal. I mean, you should always celebrate to some extent. We've had, 27 goals in the first 2 games. And so, we are scoring, and that's a great thing. But with all of that said, we have high expectations with our whole team, but in particularly I'm referencing our back line. And even though we've posted 3 shutouts, not on win, going into tomorrow, but things haven't been perfect, and I think a lot of people see us playing perfectly well organized in the back, but there's been holes, there's been gaps, and we see it on footage, we see it in the video. So we're not where we need to be, and but we're at a good spot.
It's funny you mentioned that you didn't play your best at the World Cup at the Women's Soccer Symposium here today. They had a highlight reel of your saves.
Well, that's awesome. There were some highlights. I'm happy
thought
for
you'd
that.
like to know.
What's that?
I thought you'd like to know that.
Oh, I would. Thank you very much.
What are your thoughts on Costa Rica? What have you seen on film, and how might they get at you tomorrow?
We just had a scouting report. You can't overlook any team, and the fact of the matter is their 1 goal against Canada was world class. It was a world class finish, world class touch, great service in, and a great finish against a great goalkeeper and a great back line. So if they can score 1 goal, I'm sure they have more in them. So we have to be aware of that, and we did watch every goal that Canada scored as well. They are a little loose in the marking in the back line. They tend to ball watch. So we have crafty players like whoever may be playing. I don't know the lineup yet, but whether it's Tobin or A-Rod, crafty players who can get in behind, I'm sure they're going to struggle with man marking in the defense.